Hi, this is a topic that I wish I had learned how to do long before I did, and I wish that I had the wisdom to understand how important it was long before my children were teenagers, before we were set in our ways as homeschoolers, before I felt like we couldn't turn everything upside down at this point to change how we do our homeschool. So, child-led learning. Also, I've heard it referred to as delight-directed learning. And the reason I believe it's important is because we as homeschoolers are trying to teach our children to love learning. We want them to have a lifestyle of learning. We want them to continue and be lifelong learners. Their education is important to us, and we're working so hard as homeschool moms to give them the best education possible. And the best way to do that is to encourage them to love what they're doing. So child-led learning is important. And if you're just getting started with homeschooling, or if you have younger students, I highly encourage you to really consider incorporating child-led learning into your homeschool as much as possible. So what is child-led learning? Why do I believe it's so important? So first of all, it's interest-driven. Your children love to learn. The problem is that sometimes we try and teach them things that they are not interested in right now, or we completely don't even think about asking them what they'd like to learn or what they're enjoying learning. So really take time to ask your kids, what do you want to learn about? What interests you right now? Use those rabbit trails that they tell you and build your homeschool on that. Let their interest drive their education, because their interest is going to keep them wanting to learn. If you're just handing them the same thing that everybody else is learning, it's going to be harder for them to find a love for learning, because it's just the same thing, and it may not ever cover what they're interested in. Sometimes it's out of the box things. Let them tell you what they want to learn and really run with that, because that will build the love for learning that you're trying to give your children through homeschooling. As I said before, it promotes lifelong learning. If kids learn that when they're young, that they can pick up and learn whatever interests them, that's something they're going to do throughout their lives. If they get older and they think, oh, I'd really like to try that, but they don't know how to start, how to begin learning about something because it's always been in a textbook, that's not going to help them. But if you give them the tools and the opportunity to learn about things that interest them, it's going to promote lifelong learning throughout their life. Child-led learning also raises independent learners. If they know that they are allowed to go look up something in the encyclopedia, or go to the library and check out books on something, or search for a documentary on a certain topic, if they know that they're allowed to do those things and that their homeschooling journey isn't just limited to the textbooks mom has or the curriculum mom uses, then they're going to be independent learners and they're going to go find out things for themselves. And that is a beautiful thing. It truly, truly is. Next, make sure you allow for rabbit trails. Embrace them. Oh, Mom, we're learning about this, but what about this? My daughter, we were studying England as part of history, and she wanted to do a study on all the princesses and the queens. And so I absolutely stopped what we were doing in our history, and I looked for young child appropriate, because she was much younger. She's 14 right now, and she was much younger, and she wanted to learn about the princesses and queens, and sometimes they're interesting for those of you that know that history. And so I had to find literature that was appropriate, because she thrives on reading literature. And so I went and found as many books as I could that were appropriate for her age, and she to this day still reads those books over and over. And that was a rabbit trail, but she is absolutely able to sit down and have a full-blown conversation on Mary Queen of Scots, and she loves those topics. So child-led learning also prepares for real life. They're going to have to, in real life, be able to learn things on their own. And if they're given those opportunities to learn things that interest them, but also to learn how to learn, to get out and do the learning themselves, to not rely on mom to hand them a textbook or a curriculum and, cover lesson 1 and answer the questions and take your test. And if they have the opportunity to go out and learn about things that interest them, it's going to prepare them for real life, because whatever they're going to do in their future, they're going to have to learn new things. And they're not always going to be handed a textbook or a course book. They're going to have to get out and do it themselves. So another great thing about child-led learning is it's not textbook heavy. I do not believe that textbooks are the only way to homeschool or should be the main way to homeschool. I actually use as few actual textbooks as possible. We do a lot more online courses, unit studies, and various resources to cover subjects versus using a full textbook curriculum. Textbooks often are dry and boring, and that is not going to promote child-led learning at all. Another great opportunity for child-led learning is you can integrate many learning methods and opportunities. You can teach your children to research, you can include literature, you can include documentaries, you can include field trips and interviews. There are so many opportunities for them to learn through different methods by following a child-led learning style that your children won't find if you use normal resources for your homeschool. A big bonus to child-led learning is it's typically a lot less expensive than a full curriculum, because it isn't a full curriculum. Our child-led learning often is online through research, through literature, which we get at the library, or through AbeBooks. If you haven't checked out AbeBooks, please do that. abebooks.com. They're awesome. And that's how we save money, is we do a lot of child-led learning and use resources from all over the place instead of ordering a full textbook curriculum. Again, I've already said this, but it's a topic that is super important that children are going to need throughout their lives is research, especially if your kids are going to go to college or trade school or something like that. If your kids do child-led learning, the research opportunities and skills they're going to have are going to abound, because they're going to be interested in what they're learning, so they're going to be willing to do the research. And so because they're willing to do it, they'll dig more and more and more, and before you know it, they're amazing researchers because they were always researching things that interested them. So that's a huge benefit, again, that will prepare them for real life. My number one favorite reason for using child-led learning as part of your homeschooling, or all of your homeschooling, I wish I had done that, number one is it involves a lot of literature. Literature should be the backbone of your homeschooling journey. Use as much literature as you can. Don't just rely on dry, boring textbooks or online courses. Give your kids the opportunity to read literature, quality literature, that will teach them. It will challenge them, it will increase their vocabulary, and it will change their world by using quality literature. So that is my number one favorite reason for using child-led learning, is because it involves so much literature. But it also allows me to see my children's love for learning come to life, because it isn't just based on what everyone says they should be learning. It's what interests them and how God made them.